Hi guys, this is Vineet and I welcome you to this video. Today's video topic is sparse columns in SQL Server. Before we proceed ahead, I would request all you guys to please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. There's a subscribe button below this video. Click on that subscribe button. It will give you a bell icon. Click on that bell icon, select all notifications to get notifications regarding all my future and upcoming videos. So let me give you 5 seconds so that you can subscribe to my channel. I'm waiting. Please go ahead. So guys, I hope you must have subscribed to my channel by now. So let's come back to today's topic, which is sparse columns in SQL Server. We'll talk about sparse columns. Let's proceed ahead. There are some points to remember while watching this video. Please watch this video till the end to gain better clarity of the concept. And if it's possible for you, please watch this video twice or as many times as you like until the concept gets clear to you. We would suggest you to perform any exercises in your test and lab environments only. Do not touch any production environment or production databases. And we would like you to share your thoughts regarding our videos, so please do share any your feedback, comments and suggestions. We would love to read the same. We have created some playlists for you to watch. The reason we have created playlists for you is because we feel that playlists are best way to learn instead of watching videos randomly on my channel. So some of our common playlists are SQL Server database design, SQL Server tables, business continuity, indexes, performance tuning, integration services, and transact SQL. If I talk about this video belongs to the SQL Server tables category and also to the SQL Server database design category. There are more than 250 videos posted on our channel and number of videos are growing at constant pace on a daily basis. So it's really very much essential that you should subscribe to my channel right away. The playlists are best way to learn. We were talking about that. So for example, if you want to learn about the SQL Server database design area, what we would recommend is go to the SQL Server database design playlist and watch out all the videos from start till the end to get better clarity on that particular area. And if we talk about this video pertains to a SQL Server tables category and also to it also relates to a database design category. Now let's come back to today's topic, and before I come back to today's topic, I also have a channel link page with the link for which is given at the bottom of this slide. And guys, also I'm including the links to all the playlist and the channel page link in the video description area of this video. So please check out all the playlist out for you, whatever playlist you like the most or whatever area you're working in. You can check out playlist accordingly. Now let's come back to today's topic, which is sparse columns in SQL Server. This will be a mix of theoretical and practical session, so be ready for that. You need access to a SQL Server machine, specifically a lab environment where you can practice SQL Server code. And apart from that, please listen to theoretical concepts very carefully. Now let me come back to notes. So today's topic, if we talk about, is regarding the sparse columns in SQL Server. And so what are sparse columns? Sparse columns are ordinary columns that have an optimized storage for any of the null values in those columns. So basically sparse column, if we say, these are the ordinary columns like any other columns, but they have optimized storage for storing the null values. And they basically reduce the space requirements for null values at the cost of more overhead to retrieve all non-null values. So this reduced space requirement to store the null value comes at a cost of overhead to retrieve all the non-null values. So please consider using the sparse column wisely. Now please only consider using sparse columns when space is saved at least 20 to 40%. So if there are chances of storing the or saving the 20 to 40% disk space, then only we would recommend you should use the sparse columns, otherwise not. So if there are like 20 to 40% values in a column are null, then yeah, you can consider that column to be used as a sparse column. And if we talk about the sparse column and column sets, so regarding column sets, we will cover that in our next video. For now, just take column sets as is, and we are also talking about the sparse columns. So sparse column and the column sets. Column sets are basically a group of columns that we will discuss in next video. So sparse column and column sets are defined by using the create table statement or the alter table statements. We'll shortly show you how you can create sparse columns in the practical demo of this video. Now sparse column can be used with the column sets and filter indexes as well. Now let's talk about column sets specifically because sparse columns can be used with the column sets and also with the filtered indexes. So regarding column sets, insert, update and delete statement can reference the sparse columns by name. So if we are using any insert, update and delete statements while using the column sets, we can refer any sparse column by name. However, we can also view and work with all the sparse column of the table that are combined into a single XML column. We'll talk about that later, how you can combine multiple columns or multiple sparse columns into a single XML column. And this column is called the column set. So whenever we view and work with all the sparse columns of a table, and if those sparse columns are combined into a single XML column, this combined single column is called the column set. This is the broad definition, but yeah, we will cover this topic in much more detail in our next video. So while working with column sets, the insert, update and delete statements can refer to any sparse columns by their name. And let's talk regarding the filter indexes in relation to sparse columns. Because sparse columns have many null values rows in that column, they are especially appropriate for any kind of filter indexes. So filter index are the indexes which filter out a certain set of rows to create an index. And you can watch out my videos on filter indexes under the indexing category, SQL Server indexing playlist. You can check out my videos on the filter indexes to get a better idea on what they are. Now a filter index on a sparse column can index only the rows that have populated values. So we can ignore any null values that are in the column while creating any filter index. And this basically creates a smaller and more efficient index or more efficient filtered index. Now let's talk about some of the properties of the sparse column, and following are the properties of the sparse column. So these are the properties of the sparse column. So if we talk about the SQL Server database engine, it uses the sparse keyword in a column definition to optimize the storage of values in that column. So basically optimize the storage of null values in that particular column. And these type of columns can be defined by using the sparse keyword while creating table or altering the table. Therefore, when a column value is null for any row in a table, the values require no storage at all. So in sparse columns, if the value is null, that null value does not require any storage if the column is marked as sparse. Now, catalog views for the table that have sparse columns are the same as for a typical table. So we can create views as well using any sparse column. And if we use the sys column catalog view, it will contain a row for each column in a table, including a column set is one is defined. So we're talking about the catalog views, and those catalog views can use the sparse column. We'll have the sparse column as well. And if we query the sys.column system catalog view, we will see that it will contain a row for each column in a table, including any sparse column or any column sets if there is a one defined in that table. Let's talk about the last property of sparse column. Sparse column are a property of a storage layer if we talk about the architecture. So this is a property of the storage layer or storage subsystem of SQL Server rather than the logical table. So it's not defined at the logical level, but it's a property of the storage level. Therefore, a select into statement does not copy over the sparse column property into a new table. So for example, if we perform a select into statement from a table that has a sparse column, that property does not get copied over to a new table because this is a property of a storage level, and it's not a table property that will get copied while we use data from a table that contains the sparse column. Now let's talk about some of the restrictions applicable on the sparse columns. So sparse column can be of any SQL Server data type and behave like any other column with the following restrictions. So there are certain restrictions applicable on the sparse column. So a sparse column must be nullable. So we cannot create a sparse column with the not null clause. we should specifically specify the null clause while creating the sparse column. We'll show you shortly in a demo how you can do that. So a sparse column must be nullable and cannot have a rogue with call or identity properties. So these rogue with call or the identity properties cannot be defined for the sparse column, and it should be nullable. Second restriction on sparse column is that a sparse column cannot have the following data types. Some of these data types are text, and text, image, timestamp. Any of the user defined data types cannot be applied on the sparse column. Geometry or geography data types, if a column has a geometry or geographic data type, we cannot define that column as a sparse column. If a column has a file stream attribute, those columns cannot be marked as sparse columns. Now also a sparse column cannot have a default value. So a default value cannot be defined on the sparse column. That's also one of the restrictions. And a sparse column cannot also be bound to a particular rule. Now, although computed column can contain sparse columns, so if we talk about the computed columns, the computed columns basically use the other columns in a table to compute their value. So those columns are called computed values. So these computed columns can definitely use the sparse columns as their input. Computed column cannot be marked as sparse. So we cannot mark a computed column as sparse, but computed column can be computed from a sparse column. That's what the gist of this sentence is. Now a data mask can be defined on a sparse column as well. We'll talk about data masking later. So a data mask can definitely be defined on the sparse column, but not on a sparse column that is a part of column set. So if your sparse column is a part of a column set, then a data mask cannot be defined on that. Otherwise, if the sparse column is not a part of column set, then yeah, you can definitely define a data mask on that particular column. Now a sparse column cannot be a part of cluster index, so a cluster index cannot be created on a sparse column, and also a unique primary key index also cannot be created on a sparse column. However, both persisted and non-persisted computed columns that are defined on sparse columns can be a part of cluster. So if we talk about any of the computed columns that use sparse columns as their input, clustered key can be defined on those computed columns, but not directly on the sparse column. So cluster indexes cannot be directly be defined on the sparse columns, and also we cannot define the unique indexes as well on the sparse columns. Another restriction is a sparse column cannot be used as a partition key of a cluster index. So this cannot be used even as a partition key of the cluster index or heap. However, a sparse column can be used as a partition key of a non-cluster index. So the sparse column can be used as a partition key for a non-cluster index, but it cannot be used as a partition key for a cluster index. A sparse column cannot be a part of user-defined data type. So we cannot mark any user-defined table type with a sparse column, alright, which are used in table variables and table valued parameters. We'll talk about this point later on. Any of the sparse column, we cannot create sparse column in a user-defined table type. We will talk about the user-defined tables, and basically any of the tables that are created in table variable, we cannot define sparse column in those. And basically whenever we create a table valued parameters, we cannot create any sparse columns. We cannot use sparse columns while using the table valued parameters. Now sparse columns are incompatible with data compression. So we should not be using the data compression on the sparse columns, and therefore sparse column cannot be added to compressed table. So if we are compressing any table, we cannot add sparse column to those tables, nor can any tables containing sparse column can be compressed. So if a table has already a sparse column, we cannot compress that table. And similarly, if a table is already compressed, we cannot add any sparse column to that table. Now changing a column from sparse to non-sparse or vice versa requires changing the storage format of the column. So whenever we change a sparse column to a non-sparse column and vice versa, it requires changing the storage format of that particular column. And the SQL Server database engine using the following procedure to accomplish this change. Like changing a column from sparse to non-sparse. It basically adds a new column to the table in a new storage size and format. Then for each row in a table, it updates and copies the value stored in the old column to the new column, and it then removes the old column from the table schema and it rebuilds the table if there is no cluster index defined on the table, or else if a cluster index is defined on the table, it rebuilds the cluster index to reclaim space used by the old column. So this is a set of 4 steps that is followed by the database engine whenever we change the column format from sparse to non-sparse. Now when you change a non-sparse column to a sparse column, the sparse column will consume more space for non-null values. This we had discussed earlier about that as well. So in the sparse columns, storage space is saved for the null values, but your non-null values will consume more space. This is the cost involved basically. Now whenever a row is close to a maximum row size of 8060 bytes, the operation can fail. So your row size should be within the limit, because the maximum limit for a row with including the sparse column is 8060 bytes, and it should not increase that limit, otherwise your operation will fail. Now let's talk about some of the SQL Server technologies that support the sparse columns, and this section will basically explain on how the columns are all the sparse columns are supported with the following SQL Server technology. So first let's talk about the transactional replication. The transactional replication support the sparse column, but it does not support the column sets. So it only supports just the sparse column, but it does not support any sparse columns that are a part of column set, alright, which can be used with the sparse column. Now the replication of sparse attribute is determined by the schema option that is specified by using the SP add article stored procedure, or by using the article properties dialog box in the SQL Server Management Studio. So whether a particular sparse column and whether that column will be replicated or not, it is determined by the schema option, and that is basically specified by using this particular stored procedure or by using the article properties dialog box in SQL Server. Now in the early version of SQL Server, we talk about the versions earlier than 2022. Earlier versions of SQL Server do not support the sparse column, and if you must replicate data onto the earlier version of SQL Server, specify that the sparse attribute should not be replicated. So we need to be careful. We should mark sparse attribute not to replicate if we have to replicate data to the early version of SQL Server earlier than 2022. And if we talk about particularly about the tables that are published, we cannot add any sparse column to those tables or change the sparse property of an existing column for a table that is already published. And if such an operation is required, we need to drop and recreate the publication. Alright, if we want to make any changes in a table to add a sparse property to an existing column, and if a table is already published, we need to drop the publication and recreate it. Drop the publication, make the changes, and recreate the publication in order to perform this operation. Now let's talk about the merged replication. The merged replication does not support sparse column or column set, so let's ignore that. We'll talk about merged replication later, what is merged replication. But for now, just remember that merged replication do not support the sparse column or column sets. Now let's talk about change tracking, and this is basically a separate topic on which we'll create a separate video. It's a separate area altogether. Now if we talk about change tracking, it supports the sparse column and it supports both the sparse columns and the column sets. Now when a column set is updated in a table, change tracking treats this as an update to the whole row. So whenever we update a column set in a table, the change tracking feature treats this as an update to the entire row, and no detailed change tracking is provided to obtain the exact set of sparse columns that are updated through the column set update operation, but instead change tracking treats this as an update to the whole row instead of just an update to the specific columns. So no detailed change tracking is maintained or provided to obtain the exact set of sparse columns that are updated through the column set update operation. If the sparse columns are updated explicitly through a DML statement, so if we just update the sparse column via DML statement, change tracking on them will work normally or ordinarily and can identify the exact set of change columns. Alright, let's move ahead. Now let's talk about the change data feature or change data capture feature. We'll talk about CDC in our later videos in more detail. For now, let's discuss this feature in relation to the sparse columns. So change data capture support the sparse column, but it does not support the column sets. And the sparse property of a column is not preserved when a table is copied. We discussed it earlier while using the select into statement. Now let me take you through a demo. We will create a table with the sparse column. So let's trigger SQL Server. You can follow along with me. So waiting for SQL Server to get to open. Once it opens, we will use the AdventureWorks 2022 database to create a table. The table name will be document store. Okay, guys, SQL Server is open. Let me connect to the default instance of SQL Server. So it's connected. And let's expand on the databases section. Here we will find the AdventureWorks 2022 database. This one is the data warehouse one, so we don't want to use that. In my system, the AdventureWorks database is with the name My AdventureWorks. For you, it must be showing AdventureWorks 2022 if you have installed the database correctly. You can watch out my earlier videos to see how you can install the AdventureWorks database, or in the Google you can type the AdventureWorks 2022 database. It will give you instructions to install that database, so check out that. Now let me trigger a new query against this database and we'll type in some code. You can type that along with me. So here what we are doing is we are creating a table with the name document store, and this is the table name, and let's define the table definition within the brackets. So we will define certain columns. So first of all, we are defining doc id as one of the columns. This will be integer type, and this is the primary key of this table. Let's define that. And second column is the title of the document, and this will be a varchar 200. Let's take that, and it will not be a null column. It should not accept null. So document ID and title is necessary, and these columns cannot remain null. And let's take another column which is production specification. Let's take this column, and this will be of varchar type. So varchar 20, let's take it, and we are defining this. Okay guys, so we have just defined a production specification column which is varchar 20 type, and this will be a sparse column, so you indicate that column with a sparse keyword, and your sparse column should contain the null value, so you should explicitly specify null along with the sparse statement. And let's take another column, and this column name will be production location, and let's take it as small int because this will contain integer values, and this will also be a sparse column, and this column can also contain null values, so I'm specifically explicitly specifying it. Let's take another column which is marketing survey group, and this will be a character column, so let's specify as varchar and 20. Let's define it as sparse and null. So sparse is basically the keyword you use to indicate that the particular column is a sparse column, will contain the null values. So sparse will be used with the columns that contain majority of null values. Now let me show you how you can insert rows in that particular table. You can do that. Let's first create this table. This table is created, and let me show you how you can insert the values. You use the insert statement and you mention the table name, which is document store. Specify the columns. That's a good practice. So doc ID title is the second column, title, and then we have production specification and the production location. Alright, so we are not using all the columns, we are just using the first four. There's a fifth column as well. Let's insert values. One is the document ID. Let's give the document specification as let's say tire specification 1. I'm taking as the document specification, and we are giving the production specification here. Let's give some number, so let's give this number, and the production location is integer, so let's take 27 for that, and let's insert this row into this particular table. Now our row is inserted. Okay guys, let's add another row into this table. So use the insert statement. We are using the document store table. Let's use the doc ID column, title column, and we want to use the last column this time, which is marketing department survey group, marketing survey group, we can say. So let's take values 12 for the, let's take 2 for the document ID. For title I'm taking survey 2142, and for marketing survey group I'm taking as men 25 to 35. Let's take this value and insert this row into the table. Let's execute this statement. So now we see that 2 rows are inserted into this table, and okay, it is saying invalid object. Okay, so the database need to be my AdventureWorks and got changed somehow. Let's insert row into this table. Row is inserted now. Let's select from this table how many rows are there. There should be 2 rows. So we see 2 rows are inserted into this table. For second row, the production specification, production location is null. And for first row, the marketing survey group is null. So we have used these 3 columns as the sparse columns, because these are containing the null values, and if majority of your rows in the table for a particular column stores null, please try to use the sparse columns if it fits your need. and that will help you in saving on the storage space used to store the null values. So guys, we are done with this topic. I hope you like this video. If you really like this video, please click on the like button below this video, and if you have clicked on the like button, just near to it there is a subscribe button as well. Click on that subscribe button. It will give you a bell icon. Click on that bell icon, select all notifications to get notifications regarding all my future videos. And guys, if you have subscribed now, we would urge you to post in your comments, feedback and suggestions regarding our videos. And also guys, help us in getting your friends involved into this channel. If they are working in SQL Server domain, ask them to watch my videos. You can share my videos with them via the share button below this video, through which you can share my videos with your friends in many of the social media platforms. And you may also ask your friends to subscribe to my channel in case you feel my channel can make difference in their life. I thank you so much for your time on this video today, and you have a wonderful day ahead, guys.